Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
We all float down here, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
Hello, I'm Amber. This is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. I literally got goosebumps. I don't want to float down here. No floating. Mm-mm.
I got
Ooh,
you.
You did. That's
Hey, you know
spooky.
what? I'm pretty sure it's October 1st that this episode is dropping. It
Ooh.
is spooky season.
Oh, man. Spooky.
You're
ooky.
welcome.
Thank you
Hi,
for that.
Chaos Kids. Hi, sister.
Hi, sister. Hello.
Do you have your giant 20-foot skeleton put up in your front yard, or
No, I wish
Oh,
I
okay.
had one of those. You know, there's
No,
one of
this is
those.
So cool, right?
There's one of those down the street from me, and he regularly puts like positive messages on a sign that the skeleton is holding. Have you seen that
Oh my
one
God. No.
off the main road? Yeah.
No.
Mhm. It's
That's
currently
amazing.
regarding Maui support, but it's been
Oh, I
other
love it.
things. Yeah.
Currently regarding Maui support.
He's like the friendly neighborhood skeleton.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Mhm.
I love that. Hi, sister. How are you?
I am fair, I suppose. I'm a little bit
Mhm.
under the weather. My partner
Oh, I'm sorry
decided
to
to
hear that.
share with me, which is so nice.
So thoughtful.
So thoughtful. So I am drinking water this episode. So that just adds to the
samesies.
misery. Oh.
Us miserable fucks who just drink water.
God, so lame. Lame.
Mhm.
What about you? What's
Yeah.
new?
Oh, that's a loaded question. You know
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, mhm. What's podcast
This-
appropriate new? I don't know.
I mean,
Mhm.
oh, this week is just fucked, right? Like, it's just fucked. But you know what? We persevere. That's what we do. And we carry on and we podcast anyway,
Mhm.
because, like I've said before, we're like the old USPS when they were as reliable as, well, the USPS. We record, we drop an episode every week.
Mhm.
Fucked up life. Be
I know.
damned.
Yeah.
So
I
here we
know.
are. Here
Here
we
we
are.
are.
Yeah. So
This
you know
one
what?
is
Tell me something so bad that I know I'm okay.
Oh my God.
You know?
Okay,
You know?
well, this one is a doozy. It's
Okay.
wild. Okay.
Mhm.
We're going to December 19th, 2009 in Dawson County, Georgia.
Georgia.
Georgia, where the peaches are. So it is a Saturday morning around 9 a.m. when a 911 call comes in from a woman who is crying and yelling and clearly in distress.
Oh, great.
Mhm. Some of the things she is saying is, I can't believe I'm going to die. Why did you bring me down to the river? Please, please don't do this. Why are you shooting at us? Please don't kill me. I've got babies.
Oh my God.
I know, chills. And it's chilling to listen to. So the call is dropped, and when the dispatcher calls back, it goes straight to voicemail, and the voicemail message says, "You've reached Jen. Leave a message."
Oh,
So
Jen.
I know. They determined that the phone she was using was a track phone, which doesn't give the name of the subscriber. So they get to
Yeah,
work.
because those are like one of those, you buy it in like plastic that you
Mhm.
can't open without like industrial scissors, like at Walmart, right? That's like
Right, like
the
pruning
grab it.
shears.
It's like a grab and go phone that you just like put prepaid
It is,
dollars
but
on
it's
or
also
something, right?
really misleading because I actually thought it was like I got one of those for Jade when she was very, very young because, well, for all the reasons, but track phone implies that you can track them.
No tracking.
Yeah,
It's like a
the
not
opposite.
track phone. They're
It's
like
a burner
burner
phone.
phone. Those are burner right, burner phones. Yes.
Yeah, so that's what she's got. So it's not traceable like a regular cell phone. They are able to reach out to the like track phone people, the cell phone provider, to get her call log, but it takes about an hour before investigators get the call log and they're able to see the last number that Jen called before she called 911.
That's it?
Well, they see her call log they're reaching out to the most recent one. But yes,
I'm wondering too, they can't track it because they're not like serial numbered. Like how my understanding is that like there is a cell phone network. There's a cell phone tower network that like even when you're using these prepaid phones or whatever, they're using the same towers as like AT&T and Verizon are using, and they're basically paying for the use of those towers. So like they can't, I'm totally going off on a tangent, but I'm just really curious like why they can't track that. Is it because there's no serial number, or she doesn't register it so they don't know which phone is hers, or when it pings off a tower?
My very limited understanding of this, and I learned about this, I feel like early on in the podcast, and it like horrified me because they are later on in the story able to sort of triangulate what cell tower she's pinging off of. But my understanding is when you have a contracted phone through like Sprint or Verizon or whatever, you pay like a 911 tax, and it allows the dispatchers to ping your location. And prepaid phones don't have that.
Oh, and then going through the triangulation process is a process. It takes time and okay.
And I think it's probably just some contract agreement that like Verizon and AT&T and all of them have with emergency services.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Total sidetrack.
So anyway, so the last person that she called was a guy named Ben Molinex. He says that the phone number belongs to his cousin, Jennifer Budrawich. Jennifer was born Jennifer West in 1987 in Dawsonville, Georgia, where she grew up with a single mom. Her father was in and out of prison, and she didn't really have a relationship with him. She got pregnant at the age of 17 and gave birth to a baby boy that she named Nick. And she was a single mom for a while and struggled, but she was a really good mom. In 2006, Jennifer met Paul Budrawich. Paul lived in Savannah, Georgia, about 300 miles away. And Jennifer was 19 and Paul was 32.
Oh.
Yeah. A little bit of an age gap. But they got married and moved to the Savannah area and had 2 more children together. The family struggled financially, obviously taking care of 3 young kids. So that's a little bit about Jennifer. So now investigators are working to find Jennifer, right?
Mm-hmm.
They learned that the couple's 3 children were temporarily removed from their home about 4 months prior because CPS had received a phone call from a relative of Jennifer saying that the home wasn't safe.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of vague.
Mm-hmm. When CPS inspected the home, they learned that the home itself was in disarray and not properly clean. And the 2 youngest boys stayed with Jennifer's cousin, Tanya, and the oldest son stayed with Jennifer's mom, Deborah.
Okay.
So Paul and Jennifer were working really hard on their home to make sure that they would get their kids back. They went to parenting classes and were making repairs to their old home. And at the time of this 911 call, Jennifer and Paul were just weeks away from getting their kids back.
Oh my God.
I know. So investigators are also not sure who Jennifer is with at the river because she says, "Why are you shooting at us?" And they don't know if her children are with her.
Right.
So back to cousin Ben, who she called. When investigators talked to Ben, he says that he talked to Jennifer earlier that morning. She was inquiring about a vehicle that her and Paul were interested in that would be reliable and could fit 3 car seats. But he said he had no idea where she was now and told them to get in touch with Jennifer's mom, Deborah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So investigators called Deborah and tell her that they received this disturbing 911 call from Jennifer, and they ask her if she knows why Jennifer was in Dawson County, because they do know that.
How far is Dawson County from like their house?
300 miles. So they're in Savannah, Georgia. The kids were taken. And they're staying with family back in Dawson County, which is where Jennifer is originally from.
And that's also where they finally figured out her phone call to 911 was like generated from.
Correct. And sorry, I guess that part we'll get to that. But yes, they do know that she's in Dawson County. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Deborah says that Jennifer and Paul came down the day before for their monthly visit with the kids. They brought Christmas gifts and Jennifer was at Deborah's house the night before visiting the oldest kid, Nick. They got a hotel room, and Jennifer went to her mom's by herself so that she could have some one-on-one time with Nick, and Paul stayed behind at the hotel room. And then Deborah said everything was good, and the motel was about the halfway point between Deborah's house and where the other two kids that Jennifer and Paul shared together, Tanya, her house was, the hotel was in between the two houses, and they planned on visiting the other two boys the next day.
Right.
Okay.
Got it. I mean, it's 300 miles. You're not going for a day trip. That's like driving to Spokane. You're staying at least a night.
Yes, exactly.
If not two. Yeah.
Yeah. Deborah is able to confirm with investigators that Nick was with her and safe. So she's not with her kid. And Deborah said that Jennifer called her that morning while she was on her way to meet the other boys. And they were scheduled to be there at 11 a.m.
What time did the call come in?
9.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So investigators put out a bolo for Paul and Jennifer's car, which was an older model black Trans Am.
Sorry. Trans Am.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
That was like, you were the it guy in the 80s if you had a Trans Am.
If you had a Trans Am, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they also learned that Jennifer and Paul never arrived to Tanya's house by 11 to visit with the other two kids, but also that the other two kids are with Tanya and safe.
Okay.
So 6 hours go by and police are still searching for Paul and Jennifer.
This car shouldn't be that hard to find.
I know. Mm-hmm. So back to the 911 call. Jennifer says, "Why did you take us to the river?" Which is helpful. Mm-hmm. However, the route from Paul and Jennifer's motel to Tanya's house doesn't go anywhere near a river. There are 2 rivers that run through Dawson County, the Etowah River and the Amicolola River. I think I said that right.
Okay. Nailed it.
Crushed it. Basically a local. So investigators are searching through both areas, and they're still working with the phone company to try and really nail down a location.
Right. To get closer to an actual, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They also search along roads leading up to the areas of both rivers, and they're looking for the Trans Am.
Mm-hmm.
Police are also not ruling out Paul as a suspect.
Sure.
Yeah. Apparently their relationship had been pretty difficult, especially since losing custody. Money was hard, and they both had really tumultuous childhoods and trauma, and there was that significant age gap, right?
Right.
But they also learned that just 2 weeks prior, the CPS worker came by and inspected and approved their home for the children and said that all they needed to do now was get a safe, reliable car and they could have their kids back.
The Trans Am wasn't cutting it.
No. I don't think you can get 3 car seats in the back of a Trans Am.
Not comfortably, no.
Oh my God. Well, we had a Bug as a family car, and we would like double buckle. I mean, that's so fucking dangerous. Oh, I don't have a seatbelt. Oh, just share one. I know. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, Jennifer was having her cousin Ben help her to find this car. By around midnight on Saturday, which it had been 15 hours since the 911 call, investigators get a call from the neighboring county saying that the Trans Am had been located.
Oh.
It was located in the parking lot of a shopping center. It was roughly 5 miles from the river. And inside the car, they found the children's Christmas gifts for the other 2 kids,
right?
Jennifer's purse, and a life insurance policy that was taken out on Jennifer just 2 months prior, which was super sus.
That is way sus.
Why would you have that in a Trans Am? I mean, in a car, but specifically that.
Specifically a Trans Am, though. That's what.
Let's not lose sight of the important detail here. Who puts that in a Trans Am?
I mean, if it was a Honda Civic, that's one thing. But in a Trans Am.
No, hard pass. Okay, so they're in this parking lot, and so they request surveillance videos or CCTV from the nearby stores, but they weren't able to get that until the following morning.
Of course. Oh my
God. The next morning, they get this footage from the parking lot, and they see the car pull in, followed immediately by an older model blue truck with no tailgate. And the truck pulls into this parking spot next to the Trans Am. Then a white male gets out of the driver's side of the Trans Am and into the passenger side of the truck, where there's also another white male driving, and they drive off. But the footage is too grainy to make out who these dudes are.
Oh, so there's possible implication here that there's two dudes that are neither of which are Paul.
Right.
And they are literally like decoy dropping off the Trans Am in some random location together. And then the one dude who drove the Trans Am hopped back into the truck with his buddy.
Yes.
And they drove away. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So police
it could be Paul. It could be Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be another dude. And it's actually two dudes that are perpetrating whatever the fuck went down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Both of which, that for whatever reason, this is really giving me like the bad juju, like really bad juju. Like I just feel icky right now about this footage.
You have good instincts. Shall I carry on?
Please.
Okay. So police asked Deborah to come in for an interview, and she comes to the station with her husband, Jesse. And investigators asked Deborah to describe Jennifer and Paul's relationship.
And Deborah is Jennifer's mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Jesse is her stepdad. Jennifer says that the couple fought all the time and that Paul hit her.
Great.
She said that their fights were usually about money and that she did believe that Paul may have something to do with this.
Okay.
But Paul's family says that he has never hurt anyone and he would never hurt Jennifer. So Paul's family decides to start their own search to help find the missing couple. And several family members make the 5.5-hour drive to Dawsonville to start searching.
From Savannah?
Savannah. Mm-hmm.
Which is where they lived. And that's where he was when she met him. And that's where his family is.
Correct.
That's where he's from. Okay. Got it.
Mm-hmm. So the phone company was finally able to get a more accurate location, and the cell tower that it pinged on was 25 miles off of the path of where they should have been going to see their children.
Okay.
But it was near the Amicolola River. So now they shift their focus to just that one river.
Right. And like, how far away was this ping from where the Trans Am was dropped off?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me write that down for a future episode. I don't know.
You guys are trying to be better. We're trying so hard to be better.
You know what? I'm not sure.
Okay.
But now they know what river. They know what river.
Right.
They end up getting assistance from the park rangers who are like in charge of the river. And one of the rangers goes to a pretty remote location along the river that's a good spot for like a canoe launch or like if you want privacy. And at this location, the ranger finds a large amount of blood.
Oh.
So,
okay.
So police respond and they tape off the scene. They collect shell casings, blood. They photographed what is clearly drag marks. It's sort of like a dirt, sort of gravelly area. And you can see where somebody who was bleeding was dragged from there into the river.
Into the river.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a search of the river is done. And at this point, it's Sunday afternoon. And investigators are out on the river when they spot a body about 600 yards downstream from the canoe launch. And
by the way, fuck a canoe.
Fuck a canoe. God, nobody's launching a canoe.
We're certainly not.
No, nor should we.
No, no one should.
Those fuckers flip.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Body 600 meters down.
Mm-hmm. And it's the body of Jennifer.
Oh, of course it is.
She had a gunshot wound to the head and several abrasions around her neck. And they determined that she had been in the water for at least 24 hours and was likely killed right after that 911 call was made.
Probably.
But they don't find Paul.
Oh, okay.
So shortly after Jennifer is found, the police get a hit on that blue truck that was spotted pulling up next to the Trans Am.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truck was missing a tailgate. It was pretty easy to find. Mm-hmm. The truck was registered to Jacob Taylor. So police go to Jacob's home and the truck wasn't there, but Jacob was. And police show Jacob a search warrant and they enter his home. They found several firearms, but none that matched the shell casings. And police asked him where he was Saturday morning, and he said that he was working. He said that he had about a dozen coworkers that could verify that. And they asked him if he had driven the blue truck to work, and he said no, he loaned the truck to his father, Jesse Kilgore, who was also Jesse, as in also Deborah's husband, aka Jennifer's stepdad.
What?
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I think I know what's going on here. Like, I think I really know what's going on here, but I can't even imagine. Oh my God. Deborah. Fucking Deborah. Fucking grandma. Okay, keep going.
So police go to Deborah and Jesse's house and ask him where he was Saturday morning. And he said that he was with Jennifer's cousin, Ben, helping someone move in a different county.
Helping someone move a body?
No.
Okay.
And that's the same Ben that was Jennifer's last phone call, that was helping her find a car.
Her cousin, who was helping her find a car that would work for her to get her babies back.
Yes. But
what
police...
in the fucking fuck?
I know, this is fucked. Okay, so he's like, I was a couple counties over with Ben. I was using the truck to help some people move. Okay. But police have a time-stamped video showing that truck in a different county than where he's claiming it was.
Right. And they have what's his butt saying, I lent my truck to Jesse. Yeah. Okay.
So then Jesse drops a bombshell, and he tells police that he is actually the biological father of Jennifer's oldest child, Nick.
What in the backwoods cousin fucking nonsense are we even doing right now?
And Nick, is currently in his and Deborah's custody.
Yes. And they want to make sure it stays that way.
He also wants to make it real clear that it was a consensual relationship with Jennifer.
When she was 17.
However, Paul's family said that Jennifer had started being molested by Jesse at the age of 12, and at the age of 17, she was raped, which was how she became pregnant with Nick.
I believe Paul's family.
I do too.
Okay.
This is so fucked. So she gave birth to Nick in 2005, and then Deborah married Jesse a year later.
What the fuck, Deborah?
And then a year after that, Jennifer married Paul. And it was speculated that Deborah married Jesse to protect Jennifer. I'm not really sure. This is like a precious situation.
What? Who is implying this? Deborah is implying this, or Jesse is?
Not Jesse, because Jesse is holding firm to the consensual relationship. I don't know who implied that. I think people are just digging deep to really try to understand what in the actual fuck Deborah was doing or not doing to protect her child and to marry her attacker. And I'm not really sure.
Okay, sorry. I need to understand this. Was Jesse with Deborah as her boyfriend during this whole molestation rapes before they ended up getting married?
Yes.
Living there as a pseudo parent, basically, as Deborah's partner?
Yes.
I don't have words, sister.
I didn't either. Okay. So it was also well known that Jesse hated Paul and was jealous of him, and he was obsessed with Jennifer.
Fucking gross.
Yeah. So Jesse and Deborah are put into a room together at the station, hoping that Jesse would confess to Deborah what happened, but Jesse doesn't budge. So then the police show him the security footage from the parking lot with the truck. And when he sees this, he changes his story.
Oh, does he now?
He said he was just having trouble with Paul and Jennifer, so he had cousin Ben set up a meeting by the river.
Down by the river.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He says that when he got there, only Paul came, and he said that Paul brought a gun and a struggle ensued, and that is when Jesse shot Paul. And he maintains
Jesse
that
Paul?
But he maintains that Jennifer was not there.
Does Jesse not know at this point that Jennifer's body has been recovered?
I don't think so, but he knows about the 911 call because the first person they contacted when they learned who she was Deborah. So, and I don't know if he knows the details of it, but she's calling saying, "Why do you have us at the river?" Which also was so fucking smart of her.
Yeah.
So fucking smart. So anyway, so he says that it was a struggle and he shot Paul and Jennifer wasn't there. And this is the first that police learn that Paul was murdered. So they send law enforcement back down to search harder at the river, right?
Right. Keep looking. There's another one somewhere.
Yeah. And his body was eventually recovered a few hundred yards downstream from where they found Jennifer, and he had been shot twice in the torso.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Jesse is arrested. And since they clearly saw two men in the CCTV footage, they believe that part of Jesse's story about Ben Mullinax being involved is true.
Sure.
So Ben is arrested and brought in. And as soon as he learns the evidence that the police had, he tells what police believe is to be the truth of what happened. He said that Jesse asked him to set up a meeting with Jennifer and Paul down by the river for the purpose of discussing more about Jennifer and Paul getting a car.
Down by the river.
That's where I go to discuss my
Everything.
big purchases. Yeah.
Yeah. All important conversations happen down by the river.
Completely out of the way of where I need to be going to see my children.
Next to a canoe launch.
And I was just at your house the day before visiting Nick, and we could have had that conversation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. So that's what he said. And then Jesse starts talking about Nick and how he didn't want Paul to raise his son. Ben said that he had no idea that Jesse had a gun until he pulled it out and shot Paul twice.
Oof.
And it was during that time that Jennifer secretly called 911. And Ben said that Jesse shot Jennifer in the head almost immediately after that. And then dragged both of their bodies into the river.
And Ben was like, "It's cool, bro. Let's just get rid of this car. I've got you."
Mm-hmm. Yep. So several of Paul and Jennifer's family members believe that it was Jesse who made the call to CPS in the first place.
Right.
Yeah. He ended up pleading guilty and received 2 life sentences with no possibility of parole. Ben Mullinax also entered a plea of guilty and received 2 life sentences. Paul and Jennifer's children, the 2 youngest that they shared together, are still being cared for by a cousin, and information on where Nick went was not available.
Because they don't want people to know that Deborah got to keep him.
I don't know. I fucking hope not.
I really fucking hope. But Deborah had no consequences in this. Because she had to know.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I don't fucking know. Who? It's so gross. It really is precious. Her daughter was raped, and yet I believe that Deborah is still jealous of her in this sick fucking way. And wants Jesse to be her man and Nick to be her child. And it's just fucking fucked up. It's so gross.
It's so fucking gross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Deborah's the one that was telling the cops that Paul beat Jen.
Yeah.
She was helping this.
Oh, uh-huh. Oh,
plan.
totally.
She was in on this, and she could have been the one that called CPS.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And, knowing
God.
Jennifer's history, it makes more sense why she would marry so young and marry so quickly and marry somebody older and get the fuck out of there,
Well, yeah, absolutely.
By all accounts of people that knew them well, Paul really loved her and he was a sweetheart and he did not abuse her, Yeah,
and they probably had problems because every relationship with lots of strain on it has problems, but that doesn't make him a piece of shit.
No.
Oh, God.
It's chilling to listen to that 911 call.
That was fucking brutal.
I'm sorry, sister.
The twists and turns on that one. No, it's fine. I have whiplash. I'll be fine though.
I have whiplash.
Oh my God. All right. Well, are you ready for a chaos story then?
Always.
Okay. Well, in honor of spooky season,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you about the mysterious death of Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh.
Do you know anything about this?
I don't know about his death. I know of Edgar Allan Poe and his dark poetry.
In stories and many things. Yes. So let's talk about let's talk about the life and death of Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay. I love it.
All right. Edgar Poe was born January 19th, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts to David and Eliza Poe. He had one brother, William, and one sister, Rosalie. Edgar was the middle child. Edgar's parents, David and Eliza, were both traveling actors. But his dad bailed on the family a year after Edgar was born. And a year after that, his mother, Eliza, died from tuberculosis after spending the last few months of her life in Richmond, Virginia. So for reasons that aren't clear, John Allan, a wealthy merchant in Richmond, and his wife Frances took Edgar in as a foster child. Well, at least that's how it's described in the articles I found. Likely because John Allan never actually officially adopted Edgar, but they did change his name to Edgar Allan Poe. And he fully grew up with the Allan family.
Did his other two siblings go there?
No.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where the other kids went, but they did not go with him to the Allan home.
Okay.
He led a really privileged life, certainly running in more elite circles than he would have had he been raised by a traveling actor, single mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
John Allan dealt in all kinds of things, including cloth, wheat, tombstones, tobacco, and of course, slaves.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. John Allan supposedly spoiled Edgar as well as aggressively disciplined him. It's this weird dichotomy, right?
That's confusing.
Yeah. In 1815, when Edgar was 6, the whole family sailed to the UK, where Edgar attended grammar school for a bit. The following year, in 1816, he rejoined the Allan family in London and then studied at a boarding school for a year in Chelsea. He then went on to another school north of London for the next 3 years until in 1820, Edgar and the Allan family moved back to Richmond. Edgar served in the Youth Honor Guard in 1824. He would have been 15 at the time. And then the next year in 1825, John Allan's uncle and business benefactor passed away. He was said to be the wealthiest man in Richmond, and he left John Allan several acres of land, which estimated at a value of $750,000, which is close to $20 million today.
Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
And later that year, John Allan celebrated his newfound extreme wealth by purchasing a very fancy 2-story brick house called Moldavia. Look, if the house has a name,
right,
it's fancy. You know what I mean?
Shit. Name your house.
Normal people's houses don't have names.
No. God.
In 1826, when Edgar was 17, he registered as a student at the University of Virginia to study ancient and modern languages. This university was really new. It was established on the ideals of its founder, Thomas Jefferson. It had strict rules against gambling, horses, guns, tobacco, and alcohol, but mostly these rules were ignored. The school had a system of student self-government, allowing students to choose their own studies, find their own living arrangements, and report problems themselves to faculty. But this system was basically chaos that led to a high dropout rate, and it's during this time that Edgar supposedly got himself a bit of a gambling habit, which caused a rift in his relationship with John Allan. One article I read said that John Allan sent him there with like maybe a quarter of the amount of money he needed to pay for tuition. So Edgar like went off to try and make money gambling with it, but then ended up in debt instead. So yeah, Edgar was like, you know, you're not giving me enough money to pay for school and to live. And John Allan did send him additional funds, but Edgar's debts kept piling up. So I think he might have like caught that gambling bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was in too deep by then.
Yeah. Edgar made it a year before he gave up on this university life. He didn't want to return to the Allan home in Richmond. Some say because the sweetheart he had left behind to go to university, Elmira, didn't wait around for him and had married another man. It was definitely also in part because of his strained relationship with his foster dad.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, Edgar decided to move to Boston, picking up odd jobs to pay for his living expenses, like as a clerk and a newspaper writer. He also started using a pen name during this time for a little bit, Henri Le Renette.
Okay.
So these odd jobs weren't enough to keep him afloat. So Edgar joined the army in May of 1827 using the name Edgar A. Perry. He told them he was 22, even though he was only 18. That first year of military service, he released his first book, a 40-page collection of poetry titled Tamerlane and Other Poems. 50 copies were printed and the book received virtually no attention.
Wow.
Edgar didn't want to continue his service in the army for the full 5 years he had enlisted, so he went to his superior officer and explained who he was, how old he actually was. Maybe he was hoping that having lied would get him discharged immediately. But the superior officer was like, sure, I'll let you be discharged early if you fix your relationship with John Allan.
What?
I know. Like, what is happening?
What kind of weird negotiation is happening here?
I don't know. So Edgar wrote to John Allan, but his letters went unanswered for months. It seems John didn't even write to Edgar to let him know that Frances was gravely ill, his foster mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the day after her burial when Edgar would return to Richmond.
Oh.
Yeah. So it may be that John was feeling some kind of way after his wife died, but he did agree to help Edgar get out of the army and help him get into the U.S. Military Academy at West Point.
Oh, that's like that bougie school that Maura Murray went to, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So Edgar finally got discharged from the army in April of 1829 after finding some sucker to replace him and finish out his 5-year term. After spending time with family in Boston, he entered West Point in July of 1830. He was 21 at this point. Only a few months later, John Allan remarried, but he and Edgar had bitter fights about this second marriage and apparently children born to John from affairs that he'd had over the years.
Oh. Shit.
And this led to a permanent falling out between Edgar and John Allan disowned Edgar.
Whoa, not an awesome dude.
Edgar didn't like West Point any more than he liked anything else he'd done up to this point, so he got himself court-martialed on purpose so he could get himself kicked out.
I think military and military adjacent isn't his jam.
Not his jam.
Not his jam. Let's move along.
Or university in general.
Right.
Structure? Maybe structure's not his jam.
Authority? I don't know.
All of these things.
Mm-hmm.
This was early 1831, only a year after he got there. His next move would be to New York, and he released his third book of poems, simply titled Poems. I guess
Original.
he financed this book in the old-timey version of crowdfunding by getting a bunch of his now ex-fellow cadets from West Point to donate funds to the cause, right?
Old-timey outsourcing.
Yeah. Edgar used to write comedy poems like satire about their commanding officers at the academy. And it's likely that these fellow cadets thought that his book would be more of that kind of thing, which it was not. But he did dedicate the book to them.
Were they happy about that?
I don't know. I didn't really find anything about that. I mean, I could have read for weeks about, you know how many like biographies there are about Edgar Allan Poe? I mean, I could have read forever about this guy. Later that same year, he went back to Boston. His brother Henry was ill, partly due to complications brought on by his alcoholism, and Henry died in August. After the death of his brother, Edgar became more serious about his pursuit of his writing career. In fact, he was one of the first Americans to live off of writing alone.
Oh, wow. Holy shit. I didn't know that.
He moved away from poetry a bit, like strictly poetry, and started writing stories. He was getting published at various places. He also had a series of editing jobs for papers and magazines, all the while writing more poems, essays, book reviews, and critiques. During this time, he also married his cousin Virginia, who was 13.
Okay.
When he was 26.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, well, technically, we don't know that they actually got married then, only that he obtained a license. It would be a year later when she was 14 and he was 27 that they would be married by a pastor with a witness falsely testifying that Virginia was 21.
Oh my. I don't have any words for your story either. Okay. Oh my God. What is going on?
I mean, I feel like it's disgusting, but also way less common in this time period.
Mm-hmm.
Or, right, way more common in this time period for this weird shit to go down.
Yeah.
So a couple years after this wedding in 1838, Edgar and Virginia moved to Philadelphia. Edgar became assistant editor for a men's magazine while he continued to publish articles, stories, and reviews, and he became widely known as a sharp and expressive critic. It was while living in Philadelphia he entered his prime years of literature. He wrote The Telltale Heart, The Mask of the Red Death, The Black Cat, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Gold Bug, The Fall of the House of Usher, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, and a whole bunch more.
Mm-hmm.
The Murders in the Rue Morgue is particularly important because it was the first modern detective story.
Oh, wow.
Edgar was the first to write about an eccentric genius who solves mysterious crimes. He's literally credited with inventing this genre.
Holy
Sir
shit.
Arthur Conan Doyle cites Edgar's character C. Auguste Dupin as the literary inspiration behind his character Sherlock Holmes.
Wow. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Edgar also revolutionized the horror genre. He was one of the first to involve deep, intuitive, psychological horror, where the true monster was the capacity for evil inside each person and what happens when we act on that evil. This was what Poe brought to the table. Also, during this time period, he made a move to try to secure a position in the administration of U.S. President John Tyler, asserting that he was a member of the Whig Party. And he had connections to Tyler through his own network, but he failed to appear for a meeting, claiming that he was sick. The friend that got him this meeting thought Edgar was probably actually drunk. In fact, it's widely agreed that many of Edgar's personal and professional volatility was a direct result of his drinking as far back as his court-martial at West Point.
Oh, he liked the sauce, did he?
In early January of 1842, Virginia showed the first signs of tuberculosis. She spent the next 5 years slowly dying of TB while Edgar drank more and more. In the midst of this period, they moved back to New York, and Edgar eventually became the owner of the publication, The Broadway Journal. He also decided it was a good idea to accuse Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, one of the great American poets, of plagiarism.
What?
Which alienated Edgar from basically all of his contemporaries.
Mm-hmm.
And Longfellow, for his part, never even responded to the allegations.
He's like, okay, buddy.
Yeah. It was 1945 when Edgar published his most famous poem, The Raven.
Mm-hmm.
It made him a household name immediately, even though he made like $9 for it.
Are you kidding?
Well, one other article I read said $15, but yes. He made less than $20.
Oh my God.
For his publishing of The Raven.
Wow.
One of the most famous poems of all time, the poem that made Edgar Allan Poe, that made him literally a household name, right? Like as soon as it was published.
Oh,
yeah.
God, that sucks.
I mean, he made money as a writer and lived off of the money he made as a writer and was one of the first American writers to do so, but he never made a lot of money. He was always struggling for money.
Wow.
2 years later, in January of 1947, Virginia died. Most of his biographers and critics would say that Edgar's repeated themes of the death of a beautiful woman stemmed from the repeated loss of women throughout his life, his mother, his foster mother, and then his wife. Edgar became even more erratic once Virginia had passed. He pursued another woman, Sarah Whitman from Providence, Rhode Island, but that didn't really work out because Edgar was just such a fucking mess and a fucking drunk.
Yeah, Sarah was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Possibly searching for comfort or stability or maybe a patron of his arts, Edgar made a visit to Richmond to rekindle his relationship with his first love, Elmira, the one that had not waited for him when he enrolled in university.
Oh.
And she was now a very wealthy widow.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, at least she's age appropriate, probably.
Sure.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing him a little
Fascinating.
bone.
He needs all the bones he can get. Not going well. Mm-hmm.
No. Despite her children's absolute dismay, the two were engaged, with Edgar planning to move back to Richmond to be with her. But Edgar had some things to take care of up north. He wanted to go to New York and bring his, one article said mother-in-law, one article said his auntie, an older woman who is related to him, back to Richmond with him so that she could be taken care of, I suppose. And he also had business in Philadelphia he needed to tend to. He was supposed to go do some editing work for a, up and coming female poet who he was helping. I don't know, because he did make a lot of his money he made doing editing work.
Oh,
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Edgar's last day in Richmond was on September 26th, 1849. Elmira was worried about his health. After a bout of cholera, he'd been quite fragile. She encouraged him to visit his doctor, who was also a friend, and he did, but it was mostly just a social visit.
Oh, well, we hung out. Does that count?
Yeah. You know how men and doctors are, right? Like they're the worst. Okay. He had a late meal at Sadler's Restaurant, and at 4 a.m. on September 27th, 1849, he boarded a ship headed for Baltimore, the first leg of his trip to Philadelphia. I believe Philadelphia was his first stop. Yeah. Like he was going to go to Philadelphia, do the work to get the editing done, then go to New York, get his auntie/mother-in-law, whatever, and then come back to Richmond. But he would never make it to Philly or New York. From September 27th until October 3rd, there is no record of his whereabouts.
Oh.
On October 3rd, on election day, Joseph W. Walker, a compositor for the Baltimore Sun, headed to a tavern called Gunner's Hall in Baltimore. Gunner's Hall served as a pop-up polling location for the 4th Ward polls. When Walker arrived at Gunner's Hall, he found a man, delirious and dressed in shabby secondhand clothes, lying in the gutter. The man was semi-conscious and unable to move, but as Walker approached him, he discovered it was actually Edgar Allan Poe.
Whoa.
Very worried about Edgar, Walker stopped and asked him if he had any acquaintances in Baltimore who might be able to help him. Edgar gave Walker the name of Joseph E. Snodgrass, a magazine editor with some medical training.
He just kind of dabbles in both. What?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
Right?
Okay.
I read that and I was like, okay.
Interesting.
So immediately Walker sends Snodgrass a letter asking for help. And it says, Baltimore City, October 3rd, 1849. Dear Sir, there is a gentleman, rather the worse for wear, at Ryan's 4th Ward polls, who goes under the cognomen of Edgar A. Poe, and who appears in great distress, and he says he is acquainted with you. He is in need of immediate assistance. Yours in haste, Joss W. Walker, to Dr. J. E. Snodgrass. In the 4 days between Walker finding Edgar outside the public house and Edgar's death on October 7th, he never regained enough consciousness to explain how he had come to be found in soiled clothes not his own, incoherent on the streets. Instead, Edgar spent his final days wavering between fits of delirium, gripped by visual hallucinations.
Oh my God.
The night before his death, according to his attending physician, John J. Moran, Edgar repeatedly called out for Reynolds, a figure who, to this day, remains a mystery.
What? Reynolds.
The doctor labeled his cause of death as phrenitis, which is inflammation of the brain, and was commonly used when the true cause of death was unknown. Many people think he died because of alcohol. It was well documented that after a glass of wine, he was staggering drunk. His sister had the same problem. It seems to be something hereditary.
He would get staggering drunk after one glass of wine, and he had a drinking problem?
Yeah.
That sounds really scary.
Yeah.
That's your body's way of saying, like, let's not do
Stop.
this. Yeah. God. Okay.
Months before his death, Edgar became a vocal member of the temperance movement, which was the, people that were all about prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
So he was abstaining from alcohol, which he had struggled with all his life. One of his biographers, Susan Archer Talley Weiss, recalls an event toward the end of his time in Richmond that might be relevant to the death by drinking theory. So after that illness in Richmond and after making a somewhat miraculous recovery, he was told by his attending physician that another such attack would prove fatal. According to Weiss, Edgar replied that, quote, if people would not tempt him, he would not fall, suggesting that the first illness was actually brought on by a bout of drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Those around him during his final days seemed convinced that he did fall into that temptation and drank himself to death. His close friend J.P. Kennedy wrote on October 10th, 1849, quote, on Tuesday last, Edgar A. Poe died in town here at the hospital from the effects of a debauch. He fell in with some companion here who seduced him to the bottle, which it was said he had renounced some time ago. The consequence was fever, delirium, and madness, and in a few days, a termination of his sad career in the hospital. Poor Poe, a bright but unsteady light, has been awfully quenched. End quote. Though the theory that his drinking led to his death fails to explain his 5-day disappearance or his secondhand clothes, it was still a popular theory propagated by his friend, quote unquote, Snodgrass after his death. Snodgrass, it really smells like Snodgrass. No, yeah. Snodgrass. I'm having Willy Wonka moment. He was also a member of the temperance movement, and he gave lectures across the country blaming Edgar's death on binge drinking. Modern science, however, has thrown a wrench into Snodgrass's talking points. Samples of Edgar's hair from after his death show low levels of lead, which is an indication that he did remain faithful to his vow of sobriety all the way up to his death.
Oh.
There's the popular theory that he was essentially beaten to death by either a scorned and angry woman or some random group of assholes on the street who beat and robbed him, causing serious head injuries that led to his death.
But did he have markings on him that looked like he had been beat?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't know.
Okay.
Others believe that Edgar fell victim to a practice known as cooping. And this shit is wild.
Okay.
This was basically voter fraud practiced by gangs in the 19th century where an unsuspecting victim would be kidnapped, disguised, and forced to vote for a specific candidate multiple times under multiple disguised identities.
Holy
shit. I
shit.
guess voter fraud was extremely common in Baltimore around the mid-1800s. And the polling site where Walker found Edgar was a known place that coopers brought their victims. And the fact that he was found delirious on election day would be no coincidence. Over the years, the cooping theory has come to be one of the more widely accepted explanations for this strange demeanor before his death. Before Prohibition, voters were given alcohol after voting as a sort of reward. Like, yay, you voted. Here, have a pint.
Mm-hmm.
If he had been forced to vote multiple times in a cooping scheme, that might explain his whole fucked upness. Like he'd gone in, voted, got a drink, came back out, put on a new disguise, went in and voted, had another drink. If he did this multiple times, like now he's fucked up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Weird.
That is weird. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Cooping.
Interesting.
Now you know.
Mm-hmm.
One theory was carbon monoxide poisoning from the coal gas that was used for indoor lighting during that period.
Okay.
Another was mercury poisoning, his symptoms matching to an extent with mercury poisoning, but the testing done for the carbon monoxide poisoning theory was inconclusive. And with that same test, they found Edgar's mercury levels were too low to be consistent with mercury poisoning.
Okay.
So neither of those theories are fully sticking. And then this one's crazy. In 1996, the cardiologist R. Michael Benitez was participating in a clinical pathologic conference where doctors are given patients along with a list of symptoms and instructed to diagnose and compare with other doctors as well as the written record.
Okay.
The symptoms of the anonymous patient E.P., quote, a writer from Richmond, were clear. EP had succumbed to rabies.
Oh my God.
According to EP's supervising physician, J.J. Moran, EP had been admitted to a hospital due to, quote, lethargy and confusion. Once admitted, EP's condition began a rapid downward spiral. Shortly, the patient was exhibiting delirium, visual hallucinations, wide variations in pulse rate, and rapid shallow breathing. Within 4 days, the median length of survival after the onset of serious rabies symptoms, EP was dead. EP, Benitez soon found out, wasn't just any author from Richmond. It was Edgar Allan Poe, whose death the Maryland cardiologist had diagnosed as a clear case of rabies, a fairly common virus in the 19th century.
Really?
Benitez's diagnosis ran in the September 1996 issue of the Maryland Medical Journal, and he pointed out in his article that without DNA evidence, it's impossible to say with 100% certainty that Edgar succumbed to the rabies virus. There are a few kinks in the theory, including no evidence of hydrophobia. Apparently, those afflicted with rabies develop a fear of water, but he was reported to have been drinking water at the hospital all the way until his death.
Huh.
There's also no evidence of an animal bite, although some people with rabies don't remember being bitten by an animal. It's possible he'd been bitten by an animal with rabies. He might have had a small bite from like a rat somewhere on him.
Why would he be in weird clothes though? Just because of the delirium?
Who knows? Yeah, that's exactly like that part is like, right. Still, at the time of the article's publication, Jeff Jerome, who was the curator of the Poe House Museum in Baltimore, agreed with Benitez's diagnosis. He said, "This is the first time since Poe died that a medical person looked at Poe's death without any preconceived notions. If he knew it was Edgar Allan Poe, he'd think, oh yeah, drugs, alcohol, and that would influence his decision. Dr. Benitez had no agenda."
That's interesting.
One of the most recent theories about his death suggests that it was a brain tumor.
Okay.
When Edgar died, he was buried rather unceremoniously in an unmarked grave in a Baltimore graveyard.
What?
Yeah. 26 years later, a statue honoring him was erected near the graveyard's entrance. His coffin was dug up and his remains were exhumed in order to be moved to this new place of honor. But after more than 2 decades, the coffin and his body were way worse for the wear, and the coffin fell apart as workers tried to move it from one part of the graveyard to another. There wasn't much left of his body, but one worker did remark on a strange feature of his skull. He said there was a mass rolling around inside it.
What?
Newspapers of the day claimed whatever that worker heard rolling around in there was probably Edgar's brain, like all shriveled up, right? But we know now that it could not be his brain, which is one of the first parts of the body to rot after death. But Matthew Pearl, an American author who wrote a novel about Edgar's death, was really intrigued by this mass. So he contacted a forensic pathologist who told him that while it couldn't be a brain, it could be a brain tumor, which can calcify after death into a hard mass.
Really?
And in fact, a New York physician once told Edgar that he had a lesion on his brain that caused his adverse reactions to alcohol.
Oh, I think it was a brain tumor.
It's a brain tumor. Some think it was just the flu turned into pneumonia that got him. Some think it was murder. One woman thinks it was by the hands of Elmira's brothers, who did not want her and Edgar to get married.
Like some kind of poison or something?
Her theory is like crazy. Like they followed him to like Baltimore or something and, got him drunk and, beat the shit out of him, or got him drunk knowing that being drunk might kill him. Like basically beat him up or whatever, forced him to drink until he drank himself to death.
Gotcha. Okay.
But because of the mysterious circumstances and the persona of Edgar Allan Poe, there are actually over 26 published theories on his cause of death to date.
Wow.
Regardless, it's almost poetic. The great American Gothic writer, inventor of the modern detective story, dead under mysterious and probably unsolvable circumstances. And that is the life and mysterious death of Edgar Allan Poe.
Wow, that was incredible. I loved that.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was so cool.
I love your face. I'm so glad you liked it.
This is now an educational podcast.
It's
Oh,
not the
man.
first time. And I usually feel like I should apologize. I don't want to be, but if you enjoyed it, then that's all
I
that matters.
fucking love that. Wow. How sad.
I know, right? He was 40.
That sounds like a miserable way to go, too. Whatever was going.
Totally. Yeah,
Mm.
whatever it was. 4
Mhm.
days of like hallucinations and delirium and just like, yeah.
In a ditch somewhere. Just, oh my God.
Yeah, found in a ditch.
Ugh.
Like unable to move, just fucked up.
Oh, God. Ugh. Well, thank you for that, sister. That was amazing.
You're so welcome. And that is, you know what? That's a challenge. I'm throwing down the challenge. It's spooky season. So,
All right.
see if you can. Yeah.
Okay. See if I can do one too. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm writing it down. All right.
She has to write it all down now, you guys, because we forget things.
Yeah, we do.
We're in that place. We're in that place. Wow, sister, we did it. Go to the order. What do we want to say today?
All the things, go check out our webpage. You can find Naomi on all the things. What are we calling it now? It's not Twitter anymore.
It's X.
It's X. All right. Misnomers on X. I just can't. I can't get
formerly
on board with
known
that.
as Twitter. Who knows how long that's going to be, because an article just came out this week that says that Musk is going to now charge everyone to be on X. It'll no longer be a free service. So we'll see. RIP Twitter /X.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, you guys, we love it when you go and give us a rating. If you're listening, please go give us a rating wherever you're listening. If you have an Apple device, rate us on the Apple podcast app. And you can do like an actual like review. You can like typey like a thing, which would be amazing. Typey a thing. Tell people why you listen to us.
Please
even
do.
if it's just because you are a masochist and you hate yourself and it just kills you, but you do it anyway. I don't know.
That's why we keep coming back.
That's exactly why we keep coming back. And we're still like 3 people away from being able to have a virtual wine night with the Chaos Kids Club. So go to patreon.com/crime, wine, and chaos. And for $5 a month, you can listen to a bonus episode every month. We do full bonus episodes every month. So you're missing out on some content over there if you're not in the club. And every 10 people that sign up, we schedule a virtual wine night so we can all fucking hang out and like talk to each other about whatever. Would be awesome to schedule one during spooky season. But
yes,
anyway, you guys, the big dark is coming. The rains are coming. We're on the downward slide towards the shortest day of the year. Like, cheer us up. Give us some love. So anyway, that's all I got. Oh my God,
I love
sister.
It. Yes.
This was so fucking chaotic.
Chaotic. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh God,
E.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at Crime, Wine, and Chaos /Patreon. Cheers.
Bum me out, sis. I need
sister.
it.